Hi everyone, it's me, Charlena, back for Tuesday Talks. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I said that with a straight face. It is most certainly not Tuesday. It is Wednesday. I tried my hardest to have Tuesday Talks done on Tuesday, but man, life has been lifing, and I can't complain though because I've been really busy, which is what I wanted. So I just have to be grateful. But yeah, Tuesday Talks did not happen yesterday. So here we are on Wednesday doing Tuesday Talks. And I had this whole plan for yesterday's Tuesday Talks. It was going to be all about garlic, the importance of garlic, how much I love garlic, how it's a pharma food, how it's especially good for preventing blood clots, which oddly, so strange. Now we have like a huge epidemic of people with blood clots. Weird, huh? But anyway, it's not going to be about that. Come back next week because maybe next week I'll do a whole ode to garlic. Oh my gosh, look at my glasses. You can literally see my ring light in my glasses. Okay, I'm going to take them off then. Now I can't see, but at least you don't see a ring light in my glasses. So this is going to be another unconventional Tuesday Talks because it's not going to be about anything wellness. Well, it is kind of about wellness. But it's just a little bit of a snippet into part of my life philosophy, and it gives me an opportunity to kind of like out my mother, which I like doing. Like, I love her, but you know, I don't know. And I think I'm going to have her like join me for some of these Tuesday Talks because she really is a hoot. You know, I watch way too much historical fiction. I do. I can't let it go. And it's not that historical fiction is bad. It's just that like mostly the historical fiction I watch are about like monarchies and empires and different ruling families. And honestly, they're just psychopaths. Even the nice ones are psychopaths because I think when you're trying to hold on to power and people are coming for you, or even when you're trying to do good for your people, oftentimes the other noble families are against you because they want to keep the peasantries in the peasantry, you know? So I'm just obsessed with historical fiction and these powerful families. I can't let it go, even though it's like so violent and probably not good for my spiritual health. But it always cracks me up when partway through the series or season, you get to meet like a parent of some of these like historical figures. Like, so for a little bit, I was watching The Great, which is kind of a fictional account of Catherine the Great. And it's hilarious because I don't know, maybe it's the second season, you meet her mother. And like her mother is a pistol. So it's kind of like my mom. Like, you think I'm a loon and a nutter, you got to meet Tanisa Renee because I'm definitely her daughter. So anyway, this is kind of a little bit about some advice she gave me. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about my background if you don't know me personally. I grew up in this small town called Belleville, Michigan, which is not quite as rural as it used to be. But when I was growing up, it was definitely rural, full of cornfields. And I mean, I loved growing up there though. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but it was very rural, very white, very Christian. And on top of that, I grew up in a very conservative Christian religion who, that's all I'm going to say about that. But basically, like, think about, like, people who are told, like, you must dress modestly. You must respect the head of the congregation and the head of your household. You know, very patriarchal, very Christian, very monotheistic, it's important to be unassuming and you don't have to be poor, but also don't be running after riches or, you know, success. Like, that's bad. That's very much frowned upon. So this is the community I grew up in, very rural. My mother is beautiful, always has been beautiful, always has been very fashionable. I mean, we certainly didn't have a lot of money when I was growing up, especially when I was younger. I'm trying to think if that's accurate. It's not that we didn't have money. What it is that it wasn't important to us. So, like, my mom didn't work when I was she didn't work for the first several years of my life because it was more important for her and my dad, instead of having a two-person income, to like pour their energy into their children and, well, me, only one child. So anyway, rural community, conservative, people who I would say weren't necessarily into fashion into outward expressions of success, who weren't into money, weren't into fancy things. But my mom always stood out because she was a seamstress. Like, she's a great sewer, so it didn't matter that there wasn't like a ton of money for shopping and clothes. She's just fashionable and made her own clothes, and she was fine with being fashionable and fine with being beautiful and fine with sticking out. She was not going to look frumpy and sad just because a lot of people did. So anyway, we would often go to gatherings. That's what they would be called, gatherings, because, you know, this very Christian rule, like parties. No one ever had a party. That sounds like too much fun. So they were gatherings, you know, small groups of people who got together to like have a little tea and coffee and, you know, have fellowship. That was my role. So anyway, I remember so distinctly from a very young age, my mother and I, and sometimes it was just like, you know, women and children, and other times, you know, it was men and women. But we might be at like some little event, some gathering, and there would always be like pies and cakes and cookies and like, but especially pies and cakes. Some store-bought, a lot of times handmade. And I remember like one of my first memories, I'm only like 5 or 6 years old, and my mom, always been very thin. We're at some event, and most of the women there, this is not a value judgment. This is just facts, okay? Most of the women there, very, like, you know, plain. I mean, it's not considered a plain religion. Like, we're allowed to wear makeup and earrings and things like that. But especially in the more rural communities, the people are a little bit more plain appearing, okay? So women who would be, you know, kind of plain looking, dressed very modestly, and oftentimes obese. There, I said it. That's what it is. And so I remember someone offering my mother a piece of cake. And she would always be like, oh, just a slither. Oh, I just want a little slither. And I would always be so embarrassed and kind of like, it would make me cringe inside, even at this very young age, because I knew that by her being like, oh, just a little piece, it made them feel bad. Not just because whether they cooked it themselves or whether it was store-bought, it made them feel bad because she's so thin and so beautiful and just so dynamic, willing to like be herself. And here they are, not necessarily outwardly these things, you know what I mean? Not necessarily fitting the Western standard of beauty, which, unfair or not, it is what it is. And we know that people who fit a certain standard of thinness, use long, whatever it is, they oftentimes get more grace, get more opportunities, make more money, treated better. It is what it is. So my mom looking how she looks, and a lot of them looking the way they look. And then here she is denying, you know, food, fattening food, sugary food, high calorie food that doesn't necessarily have nutritional value. Here she's just like, oh, I just want a little tiny bit. And here they are looking the way they look, eating these giant portions of cake. And it made them feel bad. And at 5 and 6 and 4, I could feel that. I knew that it made them feel bad. Now, I didn't have the words for it, but I was embarrassed. Every time she did that, I was super embarrassed, and I just wanted to crawl into a hole. Now, as a child, you know, I didn't have all the nuances for it, and I didn't think my mom was trying to make them feel bad, but I knew she was. Now then, cut to, I think I was around 15 or 16. I don't know why, but something made me look. We had some cake in the house because we had a gathering, and I looked at the portion size. Now, I think they've changed since then, but it was this giant Edelman, is that how you pronounce it, cake, and I think it said it served 6 or served 8, and I was like, oh, because I was like, oh my gosh, like the portion size are huge. Like I was kind of also secretly judging the people offering my mom a giant slice of cake, thinking like, why are they eating such a big slice of cake? Because that's the portion size. That was a normal portion size. Now, I don't know if they've changed it since, but that was a normal portion size. So they were right in serving these giant pieces of cake. And so I remember saying something to my mom, like, oh my gosh, these portion sizes are huge. Like, this cake should be feed like 15, 20 people. It says it only feeds 6 or 8. And then I told her, because I had the words for it then, how I used to feel as a kid when we would go to things. And she'd be like, just a slither, just a slither. And it's just like, God, lady, can't you just eat the cake? And so she told me, she said, Shalina, or she might have said, daughter, because that's what she likes to call me, Shalina Nicole, or daughter. She says, Shalina, if you eat what they eat, you'll look how they look. And it was like mind-blowing. And I was just like, oh my God, she's so right. Like, so many lessons in that. My mother is not trying to make anyone feel bad when they offer her food and she refuses it. But she was letting me know, you have to stick to your personal parameters. You know what's good for your body. You know what diet you should be on. You know what you need to feel well and flourish. And there's times when you finally get yourself together and you have your boundaries about what you're going to eat, what you're going to do, how you're going to interact with the world, how you're going to show up. And then you think you want to just like, oh, you want to be with the crowd. You know what I mean? You go to an event and there's wine there and there's liquor there, even though really you kind of haven't been drinking for years because you don't want to do it anymore. But you feel kind of obligated. You want to fit in. And then the other thing is you're like, oh, it's just this one time. Oh, it's just because it's their birthday party. Oh, it's just because it's Christmas. Oh, it's just because Susie's retiring. Oh, there's always going to be events and things. They're constant. So if you're always like, oh, I'll just take this treat this time. Oh, I'll just take this treat that time. Then there's nothing wrong with treats. But you have to remember, if you eat what they eat, you'll look how they look. Now, let's talk about Americans. I love Americans. I'm an American. But the reality is Americans are not doing well en masse. We are sick mentally, physically, emotionally. I consider myself with this. Most of us are in debt. We are unhealthy. We have a whole host of both mental health and physical ailments. So if you do what they do, if you eat what they eat and drink what they drink and consume what they consume, whether it's the news, the media, the commercials that say take this medicine or oh, get this app to gamble. If you do what they do, your life will be like their life. And you have to be true to your own self. Oh God, I mean, everybody says that, whether it's religion. No, probably religion doesn't say that. You know who does say that? I feel like the esoterics and even Shakespeare. What is that? To thine own self be true or something. I've mangled that quote. But the point is, you got to stick to your guns. You do. And you have to do what's best for you. And even if you're an empathetic soul who feels that by you being who you are and keeping the boundaries that you have for your health, for your safety, for how you want to live, for what you think is okay, you might make other people inadvertently feel bad. But you're not trying to make them feel bad. And if someone is going to feel bad because of your choices, that's on them. That's on them. And honestly, now that I'm an adult, I can see that my mom was actually being very empathetic. She was having as much as a concession as she could. Because you know what? She didn't want the dang on cake. She didn't want the cake, the pies, or the cookies. She didn't want them. She doesn't truly want them. So her saying, oh, just a slither, was her actually being empathetic, being kind, understanding that not participating, not partaking at all was going to make them feel bad. She was doing her best. And I'm glad she's taught me that if you eat what they eat, if you take the medicine that they take, if you do what they do, then your life will mirror theirs. Okay, that's it. That's today's Tuesday Talks. That is on Wednesday. Sorry about that. Come back next week for next week's Tuesday Talk, which will possibly be about garlic. Okay, bye.